If you think going vegan will save the planet or that nature will just heal itself, you're not alone. But you have been misled. I used to believe these myths too. The headlines, the infographics, they all make it seem like climate change is simple. But the more I learned of the science and policy behind it, the more I realized we are focusing on the wrong things. In this video, we are going to break down 5 of the biggest climate myths that are still shaping our choices. And I will show you what actually makes a difference. Not just for your personal footprint, but for systems, policy, and the cities we live in. And let's start with a myth I see everywhere. A myth where they shift the blame to you. This idea that your personal lifestyle is the biggest factor for climate change. Sounds familiar, right? You've probably heard it since middle school. Go vegan, ride your bike, and skip that flight. And you believed it would save the planet. But what if I told you that focus is hiding the real story? The narrative is everywhere. Your personal carbon footprint is killing the earth. Headlines shout, "Stop eating meat," and carbon calculator apps killed you over every mile you drive. But here's the reality check. About 100 companies, mostly fossil fuel giants, are responsible for over 70% of global greenhouse gas emissions. That single statistic dwarfs the combined effort of every lifestyle change we make. Just imagine it, all of us stop flying, we go vegetarian, and we switch to electric vehicles. Those efforts together still wouldn't match. What happens when a single oil major ramps up production by 10%? So if we keep debating meat versus vegetarian, we miss the real levers. Rewriting energy policy, retrofitting buildings, redesigning supply chains. Those systematic flips move the needle by gigatons, not kilograms. Take Vancouver. The city was climbing in emissions, but they realized lifestyle tweaks weren't enough. So they mandated green building codes, insulation, energy-efficient heating and cooling, solar-ready roofs, and slashed building emissions by 10% in just 2 years. That's more than what would have happened if every citizen there switched to vegetarian and electric cars overnight. Why? Because buildings and infrastructure lock in emissions for decades. When you change the system itself, the impact multiplies. And it lasts. That's what happens when systems change and when we stop blaming individuals and start redesigning the rules. Now let's tackle myth 2. The comforting idea that nature will just heal itself. It will bounce back on its own. Let me give you a spoiler. It's not that simple. You've probably seen the headlines. Chernobyl's wildlife is thriving. Or stories of forests reclaiming abandoned farms. It's tempting to think Earth just heals itself if we take a step back. Let's call it the Mother Earth narrative. The planet is resilient. Give it time and it snaps back. These success stories make great headlines. So most of us just assume ecosystems will repair itself if given the time. But here's the catch. Ecosystems have tipping points. Coral reefs bleach in weeks and may never rebuild. Rainforests, once fragmented, lose critical species, which made reforestation possible in the first place. And then they collapse over decades. Without intervention, some damages are effectively permanent, or they set off destructive chain reaction. Real recovery needs active assistance, something scientists call assistant resilience. Engineers and ecologists are teaming up there to help nature restore itself, building artificial reefs to ensure coral growth, reseeding soils with essential microbes after forest fires, and reconnecting fragmented forests with wildlife corridors. These aren't just feel-good projects, they actually jumpstart the process that would otherwise stall or fail entirely. A great example of assisted resilience is something that's happening near me, with the Netherlands Oosterscheldekering. Engineers and ecologists have added artificial reef structures here to support oyster restoration. This recreates lost habitats, alongside reinforcing the critical flood protections. Within just a few years, local oyster populations started to rebound, proving that when we design with nature in mind, ecosystems can come back to life. Nature is strong, but if we want it to last, it needs our help. That's the power of assisted resilience. Now, let's talk about Myth 3, the idea that we are just one big invention away from solving climate change. You know how every time some flashy new gadget hits the news, solar paint, carbon scrubbing skyscrapers, space-based reflectors, people say this will save the planet. But is that actually what happened? We love a breakthrough story. Every innovation feels like a hope in a box. Soaring headlines, viral videos, big venture capital bets. It edges out the harder conversations about politics, money, and behavior. We root for the next big breakthrough, assuming one invention can fix our problems overnight. But here's the real deal. The core technologies, solar panels, wind turbines, efficient buildings, have been proven to work for decades. We know exactly how to slash emissions with them. What's missing is the vision to deploy them at scale, aligning regulations, unlocking finance, and redesigning our cities. Just imagine a world where every rooftop shares power, every street runs on renewables, and every community owns its own energy. That future isn't in some distant lab. That future is within our very reach today. The problem isn't the invention, it's the deployment, the policies, and the behavior to use them at scale. Innovation is a multi-step pipeline. It starts in a lab with research and development. Then we start testing it with pilot projects. After that, we need policy approval to use them. Then starts the financing, the mass rollout, and then communities start adopting the use of it. But every breakthrough can falter when even one of these links breaks. So we need to strengthen it at every stage. For example, in Barcelona, a neighbor solar co-op built a prototype microgrid in just 6 months. But then it sat idle for a full year, waiting for permits and funding. When the city updated its energy policy, that same system powered 200 homes within a week. Technology was ready, the people were ready, but policy wasn't ready. That's why innovation alone isn't enough. We need the vision and the readiness to use it. Next up, let's explore myth 4. The myth that carbon is climate change. Now, let me ask you something. If we cut every ton of CO2 tomorrow, would the flood stop? Would the heat waves? Would the droughts reverse? Would your city be ready for the next one? We have been trained to chase net zero. The term is everywhere. In headlines, company ads, climate pledges. It sounds scientific, focused, but when carbon is the only metric that matters, we ignore the damage that's already happening right now. Well, here's the hard truth. Climate change isn't some future emission curve. It's already reshaping our water, our food, our safety and our health. Whole cities are overheating. Flood maps are being redrawn. People are being displaced. Why we still debate parts per million. Last year alone, over 3 billion people faced water stress. Heat killed tens of thousands. Many were without air conditioning, living in concrete slums. Carbon isn't what drowned Jakarta. Policy in action did. Think of fighting climate change like steering a ship through a storm. You need the engine to get through it and the hull to survive the waves that are already here. Mitigation tackles the root cause, cutting emissions so the storm eventually subsides. Adaptation strengthens our defenses so communities stay safe while the storm rages. For example, in Rotterdam, when you see its plaza, you might think it's just a cool public square. But when it storms, it doubles as a stormwater reservoir, protecting neighborhoods from flooding while giving people green space. Here in Rotterdam, they didn't wait for the next big breakthrough. They redesigned public space to be both a park and a flood buffer. That one policy decision cut flood risks massively in that region. And believe me, no carbon offset does that. We have been misled into chasing numbers, but now it's time to zoom out and see what real change looks like. When you think green city, what comes to mind? Bike lanes? Solar rooftops? Maybe a park or two? Easy, right? Most of us, we just judge sustainability by what we see. Green roofs, bike paths, a few solar panels. They feel like progress. And well, politicians love them because they're fast to install and great for photo ops. And for cities trying to go green, it's tempting to just check off some of these boxes. And well, then they can move on. But the underlying danger of this? We mistake surface upgrades for real change. The real urban resilience lives underground and behind the scenes. It's in the sewers that don't flood, in power grids that don't collapse, in policies that ensure every neighborhood gets green space and clean water. Without equity, governance, waste systems, heat mitigation, and water management, those bike lanes simply sit unused when the pavements melt or the grid fails. Just think of a city like an organism. The bones, they are its infrastructure. Waste networks, water cycles, power distribution, muscle and skin, they are the visible bits. Parks, bikes, solar, you need both. Strengthening only the skin won't keep you safe. Now, for example, Rotterdam doesn't just look sustainable. It's engineered to survive the next century. The city dug water plazas to double as flood basins. They buried heat grids under dense neighborhoods and designed entire districts with climate equity and logistics in mind. They didn't just add some green, they redefined how the system works. And that's how you future-proof a city, by reinforcing its bones, not just decorating its skin. We need to zoom out and see the big picture. And all these myths, they have one thing in common. They keep us chasing small fixes or waiting for magic bullets, while the real opportunity was to rethink how we build, live, and work together. Now that you've seen what really moves the needle, you can bring that perspective into your own world, whether that's your workplace, your neighborhood, or even just conversations you have over dinner. Small shifts in how we talk about climate can ripple out in ways we have never imagined. And if you're curious how these ideas play out on the ground, check out my playlist on global climate adaptation and sustainability case studies, and discover how cities worldwide are rewriting the rules. Remember, together we can engineer a sustainable tomorrow. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.